Hello, it's Debbie and Rolo here, though I have a feeling Rolo may jump down in a minute. I can't read when he's kissing me. So today we're going to read a chapter from The Secret Adventures of Rolo, Book 4, Jewel Dog and the Dragons, and this is all about Rolo and the Trojan horse. We landed unobserved in a Middle Eastern town. I thought for a minute we were back in Dubai. Oh, Rolo, you forgot to tilt your wings. We're in modern-day Western Turkey. Hisarlik, site of ancient Troy. Yes, but about 5,000 years too late, Yulia wailed. Well, the Turks seemed too busy with their everyday lives to be noticing a girl sitting astride a small dragon wearing a jewelled collar, so we managed to sneak out of the town to a bit of wasteland and take off quickly, back up in the air. This time I completed the manoeuvre properly and remembered to tilt my wings at the appropriate moment, just as we broke back through the cloud layer on our descent. We had arrived at the same spot, but the scene that greeted us this time was very different. We were on the outside of a very high wall indeed. Yes, this looks about right, said Yulia as she jumped down. Well done, Rolo. Welcome to Troy. We'd better get this collar off so that you can be a dog again. You might blend in a little better as a dog than a dragon, don't you think? Yulia looked around for something to stand on so she could reach the buckle on the back of my neck. I'd better look after the collar for you, she said, climbing onto a low wall. As soon as Yulia unfastened the collar and removed it from my skin, I felt the same tingling sensation and glanced down at my paws and saw that they were furry once more. Did I change colour as a dragon? I asked her, licking my paws. You were a dragon, not a chameleon, she laughed, and then added, no, you still look like Paddy Paws, but with scales and wings and a funny tail. We sat down in the shade of an olive tree, and I don't think we looked too much out of place. There were dogs, children, men and women all going about their business on the outside of the wall. It seemed this was a farming community. Athelstan told me to give you a bit of background about the Trojan War, as we have arrived towards the end of it, said Yulia as she tickled my ears. I settled down to listen. The hot sun was making me sleepy. Well, it all started with Helen. No, let's rewind a bit. Legend has it that it started with a game between the Greek gods. I put my head on her lap and listened. There was a wedding between Greek king Peleus and Thetis, a goddess of the sea. To witness their marriage, all the gods had been invited except Eris, goddess of discord. In a rage, and rather like the bad fairy in a well-known story, Eris threw a golden apple labelled "To the fairest" among the goddesses, hoping to cause mischief. Hera, Athene and Aphrodite each laid claim to the apple, which came from the tree of the Hesperides, and each wanted the prize. Zeus, chief of all the Greek gods, decided it wasn't in his best interest to mediate the competition for fear of upsetting the goddesses, and instead he bade Hermes, the winged messenger, to take the contestants from Mount Olympus to the mortal Trojan prince, Paris, son of King Priam, so he could decide which of the three deserved a prize. Each goddess appeared in a dream to Paris and tried to bribe him to choose her as the winner of the golden apple. Hera offered him wealth to rule over Europe and Asia. Athene offered him heroism and victory. Troy eventually chose Aphrodite because she promised him love in the form of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen. Helen had been pursued by all the Greek kings because of her legendary beauty. Problem was, Helen was already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta. Paris claimed his prize by running away with Helen. He sailed back to Troy with her and hid behind a big wall in his father's kingdom, besieged within the city for 10 years, despite many attacks by the Greeks, who sailed in 1,000 ships to reclaim their lost queen. Lots of heroes with names beginning with the letter A were involved: Agamemnon, Achilles, Aeneas and Ajax. They mostly perished. Now it's reached a kind of stalemate, and that's where you come in, Yulia finished her explanation. I was almost asleep. Come on, Paddy Paws, you're to meet Odysseus, king of Ithaca, to see if you can resolve the problem by ending the siege of Troy. She shoved my head off her lap and stood up. I thought I was Rolo now, I said sleepily. That's going to be your dragon name. You're back to Paddy Paws when you are being you. Aren't you coming with me? I asked, feeling a bit anxious about the task. This is your adventure, not mine. Don't worry though, I'll be close at hand. There's something I want to do whilst we're here. In this time of war, everyone was suspicious of strangers, but nobody took much notice of me because I was just a dog. I sauntered up to the guards on the big wooden doors of the palace and did my best meerkat impression up on my back legs. This charm offensive usually works, and it didn't let me down this time. Hey, look at this Kion, said one of the Greek guards. I accepted a piece of bread and went within the walls unchallenged. King Odysseus was easy to find. He was having a war planning meeting with his army leaders, and they were fed up after 9 long years of fighting, with no visible means of removing the Trojans or of rescuing Helen and returning her to her Greek husband so they could all pack up and go home. I was pleased to find I could converse with him, and I jumped up on his lap from where I could inspect him more closely. Odysseus was a great big dark-skinned man with thick curly hair, a large nose and a black beard. He smelt of olives. I licked him under his chin, and his troubled face broke into a wide smile. He stroked me absent-mindedly while he addressed his war council. We've tried everything to break into the fortress. There's no way in. What else can we do? Trickery, I whispered in his ear. You can trick your way in. If the king was surprised that a small dog could address him, he didn't show it. And just what do you propose, Kion? I had the full attention of the war council now and stepped on the table importantly. I was winging it a bit because I didn't really have an idea as such. I was just remembering stuff I'd heard in conversation between the floppy-haired boy and the smiley lady. The way I see it is you need to strike camp and leave the area. Disperse the army, I said boldly. There were mutterings from the army leaders. What trickery is this? Said one, equally dark and hairy. You don't really leave, it's an illusion you're creating. Let the Trojans think you've abandoned your siege. Simply go away and hide. How does that get us into Troy? Said a third dark and hairy man. Here's the rest of the plan. You need to leave them a gift right outside the gates, one they can't resist. They will open the gates to take the gift inside, and then you can surprise them in attack. The muttering in the room rose to a crescendo. What kind of gift? Someone shouted. You, said a new voice. Yes, that's it. We'll leave the cute Kion outside the gate and they will want to keep him. So when they open the gates, we all rush in. This stupid suggestion was met with guffaws of laughter all around the room, and then unbelievably they started nodding their heads in approval. Were they really this dim? No, this plan was never going to work. I had to somehow get them to think about making a big statue on wheels, something the soldiers could hide in. I held up my paw for silence and commanded their attention again. I explained the second part of my plan. But we can't fit the whole army inside a wooden animal, said the one who'd wanted to leave me at the gate. Build it big enough to hide 30 of your best soldiers. I was warming to my theme. The rest of the army will be waiting for a signal not too far away, and once the gift is inside the walls of Troy in the dead of night, the soldiers can sneak out, open the gates from inside to let the rest of the hidden army in, snatch Helen, sail home. There we are. Problem solved. Job done. My idea was met with stunned silence. They all looked at each other. You could have heard a pin drop. One of the men started drawing up a plan for a wooden animal. Its features looked remarkably like mine. I'm not sure they will know what that is. No disrespect, young Kion, said the king. We need to make something more recognisable. A lion, suggested one. Too hard to draw, said the planner. A serpent. Not very appealing, said King Odysseus. I don't think they'd open the gates for that. What about a horse? Said one of the men who hadn't spoken previously. At last, we're getting there. Excellent idea. All men desire a fine horse. They're bound to fall for it, I encouraged. The war council planned through the night and made drawings of a fine model horse big enough to hide some soldiers inside. I stayed to watch, and other men with knowledge of woodworking were dragged from their beds to begin building the gift. There was no time to lose. And we're going to leave it there, and I'll resume the chapter at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Goodbye from Rolo and I.